for liftoff in T-minus 30.
Stand by for further instructions, Minnesota Black Robe Regiment.
Secondary guidance systems engaged.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, it will be on my mark.
All systems are a go. All systems are a go.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, you are over the target. You are authorized to fire at will.
Man, did it again. I don't know why. It's supposed to automatically unmute and it didn't mute. So, hey, thanks for stopping by Minnesota Black Robe Regiment. For those of you that have never been here before, this is my show. This is my channel, and this is TC and Friends Monday Night Musings. I'm going to have a couple of guests, Merle and Marcia from Ottertail County, wanting to talk a little bit about should we say insider politics and maybe some nepotism and some corruption that is happening in the state of Minnesota, and not just in the Twin Cities, by the way. It is absolutely 100% something that's going on statewide in the GOP. And we're even kind of seeing some of that play out down here in my neck of the woods. I'm getting ready to have a conversation with a gal who is challenging Greg Davids for the primary here in our county. And this is not new here in Minnesota. Well, it's new in Minnesota overall when it comes to the Republican Party, but it is not new this year. It's happening all over the place. And that's why I have a line of communication open up with Laura Thorson here in our district, who is, like I said, challenging Greg David, who has been a sit on his hands, do nothing, help nobody kind of guy for the last, for a long time. And I used to campaign for him, by the way. While we're at it, so check out the coffee, check out the merchandise, make sure you're, good thing this is empty. It almost hit me in the head. Minnesota Black Robe Regiment Muhlenberg roast, best coffee you will ever have. Have not forgotten that we're working on a darker roast. It's a medium roast. We're also, like I said, we got merchandise here. And if you're interested and you want to support me, you can order merchandise. I'm not one of those people who just flat out says, "Hey, come give me money and I won't give you anything in return." I'm one of those people that says, "Give me some money and I will give you something in return." And besides this great face, as Merle reminded me earlier, I have a face for radio. Thanks a lot, Merle. You get to come in last because of that. Should have had your wife on instead. Like friends like you. But I want to give product to people who support. So when you support me, you're supporting other veterans and you're supporting people that support veterans. So Indy's Coffee makes my blend for coffee, and it is phenomenal. And if you tell them you're looking for my blend, they're going to tell you come buy it from me. Second Generation Creations does not make my product for other people. They make my merchandise for me to sell to you. So if you're interested in that, great. And if you're one of those people who says, well, I don't really drink coffee, I don't really need merchandise, you see my subscribe star scrolling down along the bottom of the screen there. It's Minnesota Black Robe Regiment podcast on Subscribe Star. I have several levels of support. One of them is $3 a month. $3 a month. That's it. And there's going to be more and more exclusive content coming up there as I figure out how to work a full-time job, do this, and edit video. So we are going to bring Marcia and Merle in here, and we are going to talk about their observations in Ottertail County and kind of what they're seeing as this takes place coming up onto the primaries. As many of you know, there are many dynamics happening here in the state of Minnesota when it comes to the Republican Party and endorsed candidates. at the convention, back at the beginning of May, the Republican Party was adamant that we have to endorse a candidate for governor. We have to endorse a candidate for, you name all of these different statewide offices. And then everybody's got to get behind the endorsed candidate. And I've had conversations with individuals who are part of county BPOUs who said, we, by our Constitution, have to stand behind an endorsed candidate, and we're not allowed to speak out against any endorsed candidate constitutionally. Minnesota GOP Constitution, we cannot speak out against them. But yet we've got guys like Kurt Dowd and others out there who are challenging endorsed candidates. Mark Bishofsky is one of them. He's endorsed. Kurt Dowd and others are challenging him. We've got a sitting office holder in the way of Eric Mortensen, who has been challenged in the primary. He didn't get my understanding is he didn't get the endorsement and his opponent didn't get the endorsement, but Kurt Dowd's out there campaigning for him. Why? Why is that happening? And so we're going to talk to some Ottertail County people who I have been in communication with for some time. And I want to thank everybody who's been opening up these lines of communication, by the way. This is incredibly important. You can't say you're willing to rock the boat and not be willing to start having these conversations. And if the mainstream media is not going to talk to you, come talk to me. Talk to somebody. But so many people are, well, I can't talk bad. You know, Ronald Reagan said, thou shalt not talk bad about other Republicans. I'm over it, ladies and gentlemen. I'm done. I said to somebody today, and if you guys don't like this, I'm not saying that Merle and Marcia endorse this perspective. This is my view. I am to the point, as a constitutional originalist, as a constitutional conservative, as a person who used to be a co-chair of his county party, it might take the Republicans losing the governorship, not winning or not getting the governorship, not getting the attorney general's office, not getting any other statewide office, losing the House or losing the Senate and not getting the House back. For Minnesota GOP leadership to start taking the grassroots conservative movement seriously. We don't want any more of the same. We don't want any more rhinos. We don't want any more of the old guard. And if this is what it takes to tear down the Minnesota GOP and rebuild it in the image of constitutional conservatives of every ethnicity across the board, then so be it. So without any further ado, and there's been a lot of ado, Marcia, thank you. And Merle, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us on.
Oh, well, thanks very much. Marcia, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to my audience? And so for those of you that we're having a little bit of an audio issue with Marcia's volume, she's adjusted it some. So please make sure, if you can, listen through headphones or a headset or something so that you can hear her very clearly. She has a lot to say. She was in party leadership in Ottertail County for quite some time. I don't mean to imply that Marcia has been around a while. I'm just saying she was in leadership for a while.
I've been around for a while.
I did not say that.
Okay. I have been in party leadership before, and we experienced such corruption that myself and a group of friends backed out of that. And if they say that it's sour grapes, we wanted to be in charge still, that's absolutely not the truth. We backed out on purpose. I am a constitutional conservative, and Ottertail County votes about 70+% Republican. And yet, so many of the people we have in leadership are liberal. And why is that? We don't like it at all. And as for myself, I am a grandmother to grandchildren who live in the county, and I don't want to put up with the county and Minnesota being the same way that the big government, big money Republicans have brought it to.
Yeah, and you've seen that in Ottertail County.
Yes.
That it's pretty much a who you are kind of club up there.
Yes.
Jordan Rasmussen is your endorsed Senate candidate.
Yes.
How many elections has he won?
As a Senate candidate, none.
And so he was in the House before?
He's been in the House. And
Okay.
that's all the politics he's had experience with so far.
And what's his voting record been like as a former member of the leadership there?
He says he has not voted for omnibus bills, but Merle has shown that he has in his research, and we've been able to follow up on that. He, according to other people in the legislature, he talks a lot, but he doesn't really introduce or co-sponsor bills or anything that would be of value to us.
Well, I think so. I want to say this, if I may, not to interrupt, but what we have to understand, and people need to kind of get this. A year and a half ago, I had a man named Duke Powell on, I had him on as a former Republican in the legislative bodies here in Minnesota, and the reason I had him on was to talk about why he introduced and supported the executive order powers that the governor of Minnesota has. And that was specifically related to, and just so you guys know, if we happen to need to talk about a particular virus on my channel, we don't mention it by name. We call it the COOF, COOF, because if you call it by its name, it gets me flagged, and we just don't want that. We were talking about these executive order powers that the governor has, and he brought up the fact that a lot of times legislation, when it's written, is not really written or introduced by the senator or the representative. What it's done is it's written by legislative aides, by a research committee for the party, and then this person kind of signs off on it. And so, not to defend Jordan, but to say, well, he hasn't really written or introduced anything. That's not uncommon. That's really not uncommon. And then when you take somebody who's young and inexperienced, because I mean, I've seen the guy's picture. He looks, what is he, like 14?
Yes.
Yeah. What is he going to write? And how, and what made him popular to the people? Because I look at him and I'm going, having perused his Facebook account, it's just a lot of fluff. It's a lot of very hollow and shallow talking points, but actually no substance. He just hobnobs with the right people. And I'm one of those who, I don't care who you are. I don't want hobnobbing, I want action. So Merle, you weren't heavily involved in politics prior to the last couple of years, is my understanding.
Correct. Yeah, I followed it from afar, but I never got involved too much. I usually attended my caucuses. I had only went to one county convention, and pretty much there I was just a fly on the wall, kind of taking it all in, trying to understand it and stuff. But I'm like a lot of people now who've kind of had their eyes open. I kind of trusted people in the Republican Party. I thought they had the same vision and the same goals that I did, which was to reduce the size of government. And but now over the last 6 years, that's really come out to the light. That's why there's so many people now that are involved in politics that were never involved before, because we realize that the majority of the Republican Party is as corrupt as the Democrat Party. They're only interested in one thing, and that is power. Now, you were talking about maybe they'll learn their lesson. They haven't learned it yet. It seems like they would rather crash and burn as opposed to cede power. They're only interested in power. They're not interested in saving the country or promoting conservative values. That's my take, anyway.
Well, let's not say that they're not interested in winning. What they see as winning is reaching across the aisle and cooperating with the left.
Yeah.
And finding these places where we can all agree that something needs to be done about all of the violence in Minnesota. We can all agree that something needs to be done about, and you name it. We can all agree. But what they're really saying is they want to get along.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe, and this is my perspective, and you guys can speak to this as having watched things, especially at your county convention, especially, and within the county party. They're really not interested in fixing what's happening in the state of Minnesota. They want to be seen as being part of a solution without offering a cure. And I think you guys have seen that play out in Ottertail County, especially.
Yes.
Yeah, I would say that most Republicans today, they will come forward and they'll say, I'm conservative, I'm a Christian, I'm for lower taxes, less regulation, vote for me. That's all you have to say. If we don't follow what they're doing, keep track of what they're doing once they get in, we'll keep voting for them over and over again because we believe what they're saying. And like Jesus says, we inspect fruit. We don't listen to what they say, but we watch what they're doing, and they're not doing what they promise to do. That's the problem with most politicians today.
Yeah, well, that's the difference between a statesman and a politician.
Exactly.
A statesman, I had Walter Hudson on. I've had him on a couple of times, actually, but Walter Hudson's one of those guys, like, before he even gets elected, I'm going to say this guy's a statesman because he's out there already rocking the boat, saying things that people do not agree with, knowing that it's an unpopular position. So let's bring up the omnibus. I often screw that up and say ominous. And I don't know if that's Freudian on my part, but they are ominous. They can very often sign off on something as an omnibus bill and say, look, I had to support this because all of this stuff was all bundled up into one. And so I didn't want to say no to the good parts. So I had to accept the bad parts. And when you point out to them, and you guys have seen this, I'm sure, when you point out to them that it's against the Minnesota statutes and against the Minnesota Constitution for there to even be an omnibus.
Correct.
One of those big bills where everything's all together. They go, well, my hands are tied. This is how we've always done things. And yet, as we said before this started, Marcia, you pointed out that Jordan has said he's never supported an omnibus bill. But Merle, you say you've got some indications that that's not true.
Yeah, and I don't remember offhand. I don't have that information with me, but I did write a letter to the editor revealing some of the things that he's done that were not conservatives at all, and that there was omnibus bills. Well, every time they sign a finance bill, there's many things in there, so it's in essence an omnibus bill. Everything should be single item. Vote up or down on every item, and they don't do that. Whether they call it omnibus bill or not, they're not doing single issue voting, which they need to do.
Yeah, and I don't want to pick on Jordan, but Jordan's just germane to your guys' situation because he was kind of the heir apparent to because you guys ended up with a new Senate seat, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
Right.
So this was a previously unheld seat. It created in the new redistricting. And so this Senate seat was completely open to non-incumbents. So you had Nathan Miller file for it. You had Jordan Rasmussen file for it. Jordan, being the member of the House of Representatives, kind of got the nod from the county party and from the district. But Nathan was never really given much of a chance. And Merle, you shared a picture with me, and I'm going to, while you're talking here in a second, I'm going to try and go find that and share it, of at your county convention several months ago, after balloting, Jordan Rasmussen is sitting on stage with the board during ballot counting, part of the ballot counting process, with his wife, who's also a secretary of the county party, taking part in the ballot counting. Whether he's actually counting or not doesn't matter. He was up there. No other candidate, including his opponent, Nathan Miller, was allowed that opportunity or offered that, as far as you know, correct?
Correct. There was people within our group who wanted to go up there and watch it, and they were chased away.
So I just want people to explain or to understand. So if you could explain, when was this and exactly what took place what convention was this? Was it an endorsing convention? Was it a regular county convention? What was going on?
It was a regular county convention, and immediately after we were dismissed, they began to count up on the stage. We were at a high school auditorium, and they began to count, and there was a couple people that wanted to go and watch, not be at the table, but just stand off and watch, and they were kind of chased away. They couldn't do so. But then several of us went out to have lunch, and we came back. And when we got back there, we saw Jordan sitting. Well, actually, he wasn't sitting at the table when I was there. I got the picture from somebody else. By the time I got back, he was actually sitting in the auditorium seat. But his wife is a secretary, so I would think that would be a conflict of interest, that she would probably recuse herself from that role also. But definitely Jordan shouldn't have been there.
And there it is, just so people can see this. So this, once again,
Jordan was tabulating on the computer, on the laptop at this time.
Okay.
In that picture.
And this is his wife. If anybody can see me moving the cursor, this is his wife right here, and this is him leaning over the table counting. He is an unelected member. He's not on the board, correct?
He's in the leadership committee.
He's on the leadership committee.
Yeah.
Which is an untenable position, is, if you ask me. There's absolutely no reason that should be allowed. He should not be in the leadership committee.
It isn't. Oh. That's true, but it isn't just that he is counting this. He had an interest in the results of this election. He put a list of people that he wanted his followers to vote for. So then after that, the vote was finished. Harry Miracle was doing the tabulation. Pretty soon he was tired or whatever, and Jordan takes over the tabulation. And both of them should not have even been involved at all. Harry would have been on the list of people that Jordan wanted to be on the delegates list. And so neither one of them should have been allowed to tabulate these votes. It's a conflict of interest.
Yeah, absolutely. So then something else happened as a part of that convention. There were delegates who were elected at that county convention, and there were also people who weren't elected as delegates at that county convention, who were then later added on in place of delegates, correct?
That was at the caucus level.
Okay, at the caucus level.
Right. And so those people had already been added to the list available to be elected at the county. So some people were elected at that and then allowed to vote later, and they are fraudulent delegates and alternates. I don't blame the people who were added, because I am sure that they were told, we don't have anybody for this. Would you mind if your name is on here? Because I have talked to several people who have said their names were added, and they said, no, I don't want to do it. I don't want to be involved any further. I went to the caucus, or maybe they didn't even go to the caucus, and so had no eligibility, refused. And Jordan himself called them after the fact and said, by the way, I had to add you as an alternate or delegate because we didn't have enough. And they said, I don't want to be on there. And he said, well, it's going to stand for now. That's Jordan himself calling them and saying that.
So what you have, for lack of better terminology, is you have a county convention that's allowing a candidate for office take part in tabulation of votes, which people could say, well, you're assuming it's unethical. Well, I'm going to assume an unethical involvement when no other candidate for office was allowed up there or invited up there, as far as we know. I had Nathan Miller on, and and as far as you guys know, Nathan was not invited to part of that.
No. No.
And this took place after Nathan was there, and then he left, and now Jordan's up there as part of leadership, tabulating votes, has a personal vested interest in how those votes come out. You go back to the caucus, and you have people being added on who don't want to be part of it, and now you have a man who is running for office calling these people and saying, I need you to be involved. I'm sorry, but whether or not that's a violation of campaign law or whether or not that's a violation of the Ottertail County Republican Party Constitution, that's unethical as hell.
Yeah.
To be calling and putting pressure on people to say, I really need you to be a delegate, even though you didn't ask to be. Now, hey, if you want to go out and drum up support and go door knocking and whatnot, that's fine. But to try and manipulate a delegate status after the fact, after delegates have already been elected, to me, screams that the fix is in. And here we sit now. Jordan is the endorsed candidate, and now Ottertail County and your Senate district and the Minnesota GOP can funnel all the money they want into making sure he wins the primary and then wins the election.
Yeah, we kind of jumped in the middle, TC, where I think we needed to start at the beginning, because
that's always a good place to start, Merle.
Yeah. On February 1st, we had our caucuses throughout the state of Minnesota. And at these caucuses, if you would like to be a delegate, you have to put your name in at your precinct, or by proxy, somebody can put your name in. And once those names are selected, you vote on them. If you have, more people that volunteer to be delegates than you have open spots. Well, at our county convention, we had photographs of 30 precincts that were done. And then by the time the delegate list got out to the candidates, there had been 26 names added to that list. So, I mean, an audit would be so simple. It's just basically taking the original photocopy sent in on the night of caucus and comparing it with the delegate list they're using now and saying, how did these names get on there? Who put them on there? Because nobody can put a name on that list other than those people in those specific precincts. So it's not a question of whether fraud was committed. I don't care specifically from a legal term, but we know that it was fraudulent in that they cheated in adding names to the fact after it. And after talking to, I think, 13 other more precincts, they found that there was actually 32, not 26 names added to that list. And that's without even seeing another 50. There's 50 other precincts that they have not even touched yet. So how many total delegates and alternates were added after the fact? We don't know.
And I think that might be one of the things you're talking about is this right here.
Yeah.
I am a professional. So this was a county delegate report and a request for auditing. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yes.
And so there is a show of discrepancy on this, and for those of you that can see it, there is a 13 to 19 or a 13 and 19 discrepancy. So reported delegates is 13, reported alternates is 19. Those are the discrepancies.
Right.
And they won't do an audit on this. They will not produce the original delegate and alternate list for you guys to see and check. Correct. They will not produce that.
Yeah.
And they have summarily rejected all demands for an audit and all requests for the proof, basically saying what's done is done. You lost, get over it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. On the day of the county convention, a gentleman stood up and he spoke about these discrepancies, and they removed, was it 2 or 3 delegates at that time, Marcia? But then Tommy Miracle, who's a vice chair, went to the microphone, and he made a motion to end discussion on it. Now, if there's discrepancies, if somebody brings up there could have been fraud involved, wouldn't you want to know that before you stop discussion on it? But they wanted to shut everybody down and not let anybody talk anymore after that. And so they took a vote to end discussion on it, and they outnumbered us about 60-40. But fortunately, you needed 2/3 the vote in order to shut down discussion, so they weren't able to shut down discussion. But they did take a vote whether to accept the credentials as is without looking further into it, and 60% of the people stood up. So in other words, they didn't care whether there was fraud or not. They didn't even want to look into it. I mean, that's corruption right there.
And Jordan Rasmussen and his wife Emma, and he was standing up. In other words, voting not to have an audit. He was standing up, asking people, his followers, to stand up. And the number of people that stood up, people we have trusted for years, our own legislators, it was just shocking to me that people wouldn't just want to do a simple audit. Now, we were told that we need to, when we could not get any satisfaction from our leadership, we were told we need to go to CD7 or MNGOP. And I found that David Hahn, the chairman of the MNGOP, told us different things at different times. He said at the MNGOP State Executive Committee meeting last night, several discrepancies regarding the delegate alternate list from the caucuses in Ottertail County were discussed. We, the MNGOP State Executive Committee, believe the best way to ensure a satisfactory endorsing convention is for a full, fair, and transparent credentials vetting process where specific issues can be reviewed. We urge you to take the time to discuss the issues during your convention. And so we did that. And again, voted down. But the problem is that MNGOP tried to rectify the situation by sending a representative to our endorsing convention. What happened was they only looked at these 10 original precinct discrepancies, and they called for those people representing them to go out into the hallway and tell them whether they were supposed to be delegates or alternates if they were on the list. The problem being, if you weren't in that precinct, you weren't allowed to speak of it. In other words, I am not in the town of Vergas precinct, but I had been told that there were 0 delegates or alternates willing to, to come forth, that there were 6 people sitting at the table. None of them wanted to be. And yet now they had 2 delegates and 4 alternates. And so since I'm not in that precinct, I wasn't allowed to protest that. And here's the thing. If you weren't at the caucus, how could you be a witness to a protest? And if you were added later, and Jordan would have said, please, please help me. If you were added later, you'd be witnessing against yourself. So how was that at all helpful from the MNGOP?
Well, but there again, you look at the tactics of the MNGOP as it relates to other greater Minnesota counties. Is it Amanda Hughes? That name, I believe it's Amanda. Is it Asante County? What county is she?
I think it's Kitson County.
Kitson, Kitson. They took a false report David Hahn took a false report of their finances, demonstrably untrue, demonstrably nothing wrong, and they dissolved Kitson County out from underneath Amanda. Now, why is that? Why did they dissolve that county? For the same reason that you guys are having problems, because Amanda, and there again, I hope I'm saying it right. I believe it's Amanda.
Yes.
Because Kitson County's not playing ball with the MNGOP and getting
Right.
behind all of the old guard. And there again, they did nothing wrong. She has run that county party above board, and they're getting her on a technicality saying she didn't file a particular reporting for finances on how much money they had, and they've kept the amount of money in their account. I mean, it's Kitson County. It's not like there's billionaires walking around giving the GOP in Kitson County a lot of money. I mean, they like, if you get 10% of their budget in the Kitson County for your campaign, you might be able to get a cup of coffee. So, and right now, a half a cup of coffee and no creamer. Right. So, this is the tactic of the MNGOP, and everybody's like, "Well, it's better than it was under Carnahan." Well, that's like saying that, let's just be. That's like saying that some city attorney like Kelly Don Martinez down in Albert Lee, prosecuting Lisa Hanson, is a little bit better than Keith Ellison. I mean, that's really what it's like. Yeah, David, it would be hard to not be an improvement over Jen Carnahan.
Right.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you're not corrupt. Doesn't mean you're not an old guard. Doesn't mean you're not part of the nepotistic insiders or a rhino. It just means you're not as bad.
Yeah.
And I think this is what you guys are running up against. Ottertail County is running up against the old guard wall of, that's not how we do things. Don't you know we're the Conservative Party? And that's literally what your leadership is counting on. They're counting on that. You said predominantly 70% Republican in your county. Plus, they're counting on your people in your county voting Republican, because they always vote Republican. So they really don't care who they put in that position.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But they damn sure don't want a guy like Nathan Miller in that position, because he might go up there and rock the boat a little bit, and then we won't be popular anymore.
Right.
One thing that seemed very strange to me was Jordan puts out a lot of I don't know, you get a card from him about every week, and he keeps saying that he supports election integrity. Can you tell me how that fits into what has happened in Ottertail County, that he 3 different times voted against auditing the books, which would take, I don't know, maybe 3 hours to do?
Let's, I do not want this video taken down. So when we talk about election stuff, we're not going to talk about a particular problem that a lot of us are convinced about. So, and quite frankly, and here's part of my reasoning, I don't care. At this point, there's nothing we can do about it. What we have to do is we have to fix it going forward, right? Do we all agree?
Yes.
Yeah, I would like to go back. I don't think that it can go on left undone. And this would happen in Ottertail County. I think a lot of the people on the other side are hoping that it goes away. And it doesn't matter who gets elected in any political race. This is not going away until we get to the bottom of it and find out
that. And that's Merle. That's exactly what I was going to say. Is what happens up at a federal level and all of that other stuff. I'm not saying it's not important, but what matters is at the local grassroots level. And if we can't even get pure, unadulterated grassroots elections in local parties, where local party chairs and local party leadership is standing in the way of transparency, how in the world can we trust that they're going to do anything at the state level? And to back people like you and I and others who are over there saying, look, we need to get away from paper ballots, get away from, we need to go back to paper ballots. We need to get away from this registering on the same day. All of that, all this stupid stuff that's been going on.
Mm-hmm.
We can't even get them to be pure in our own party.
Right.
Right.
And then we're supposed to believe they're not part of the problem.
Right. Well, I often say this, and anybody who's listening, they hear me say it almost every time they're with me. I'm with people. It's this: we knew that the Democrat Party was corrupt before Trump ever came on the scene, and we also knew that the media was in the tank with them. But what Trump really opened people's eyes to is just how corrupt the Republican Party is. The majority of the Republican Party is in the tank. That they're liberals themselves. They're pushing the one world government and socialism and every other evil thing. So, yeah, it's not a Democrat problem. It's a swamp problem.
I run the risk of alienating a lot of people whenever I bring this up, but I do think it's kind of come down to, I have a friend that tells me this all the time. I talk to him on a pretty much daily basis, and he keeps telling me, well, I'm not voting for anybody I don't think can win. And I get that. I understand why, because we've had it pounded into us that voting for a third party candidate, voting for an unendorsed candidate, it's like throwing a vote to your opponent. Ultimately, we hear that constantly. We hear that over and over and over again. You know, Ross Perot is allegedly the reason why Clinton won. I can't say that that's true or false, because I don't think we can know that. But one of the things that the Republican Party counts on is, like I've said already, and what you guys have alluded to, is they're counting on the old school, I've always voted Republican, I'm going to continue to vote Republican. And then when they do win a seat, they go, oh, look, we won. Well, the problem is you don't win. You might win the election, but you've lost your power, because they go up there and they play ball. And when I say play ball, I don't mean to win. They play ball with the other side to remain popular. And we're kind of coming to a point now where it's time to start looking at other people and saying, look, I'm gonna look at this person who didn't win the primary and say, run third party, run whatever, do whatever you have to do, come into the next election and run on with an alternate party. We saw that with Bull Johnson. Bull Johnson knew he wasn't going to be able to challenge Fishbach. Didn't end up getting enough signatures to get on as an independent, so he got endorsed by the Legalized Weed Party, and everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, he's one of those." No, excuse me, he did what he needed to do to get on there, and people go, "Well, he can't win." I don't care at this point. I would love to see him beat the philosophical crap out of his opponents, and make a point.
Yes.
And that's what we have to be willing to start doing. Because what we do constantly, and Merle, you saw that. Marsha, I don't know if you were at the convention, the state convention this year or not, but I know Merle and Carol were, because we got to meet face to face for the first time. But we saw that there's a lot of holding your nose and going, okay, well, we got to get behind this endorsed candidate for whatever office. And I think you guys know which one I'm talking about. I'm trying to be somewhat careful here. But why? Am I going to win? And quite frankly, do I want to win if it means that the person who I'm voting for is ultimately going to betray me? If your talking point is, I'm going to pardon this police officer who I've decided is going to get me votes if I say I'm going to pardon her, is that what we want? Is that the message we want to send? Or do we want to vote for a person based on principles and ethics and integrity and how much they closely align with us, even if it means that maybe we don't win? I'd rather lose on principle than compromise to win, because when you compromise to win, you get nothing. Are you guys seeing that play out in this election for you at a local level?
It's not just us. There are 18 adjoining counties in northwestern Minnesota where there has been election,
Corruption.
where there has been corruption. And I don't understand quite why these candidates are willing to participate in it. And it makes me wonder, what is the deep subject that they are going after? Because as far as Jordan goes, we knew he wasn't as conservative as he said that he was. He started running with the big money, big government people and aligning himself with those in this county. So we were.
But does he come from that kind of background, though? That's the question. Does his family come from that? And I'm not saying that. I have no problem with rich people. I would like to be one of the rich people sometime. I am not. So if you guys would like to go over to my Subscribe Star and help me be one of the rich people, I'd be more than happy to name you by name if you want to be a supporter. But I don't have an issue if you're one of those wealthy people, one of those well-to-do. The issue is so I have some supporters. Arden Sales Group. They're adamant supporters of my show. They help keep me on the air, if you will.
I don't mind rich people. I mind people who are spending my money as if it is theirs.
Exactly.
And so I don't understand, if he had not done this in Ottertail County, if we hadn't caught him doing this, we would have been fine. We probably wouldn't have gone out and tried to find somebody to run against him.
Right. And
so I don't understand.
Exactly.
Why does he do it?
Precisely. What is their purpose behind this? And people get mad, and you guys have alluded to this. Marcia, you especially have alluded to this, that, well, they're just upset because they're not in leadership anymore. Like, no, it's like, or they're upset because they're not part of the rich in crowd. Like, there again, I mentioned Arden Sales Group. They're great supporters of the show because they're not insiders. So are we gonna say, well, what's the reason Arden Sales Group is been part of supporting the content of the show? Is it because they're jealous? I'm like, what? No, trust me, I'm in constant communication with them. They're not jealous. They don't like the corruption. And so if you're born into that mindset and born into that mentality of, I have to get along with this group because I'm part of this group, then I have to do whatever that group says. You're never going to fix anything. And it's not just Ottertail County. We've seen this in Morrison County. I mean, I know you guys know what's happening in Morrison County. Mm-hmm. And Merle, I think you've seen that where Nate Wiesenberg's wife was assaulted. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm not joking. She was assaulted by the father of Manny Hefferman. And that's in your guys' neck of the woods, way up there in your district. Like, what's going on? It was like, is there something in the water? That's what I want to know. And are you guys all drinking filtered water to avoid this?
There's a comment that I wanted to go back to, and that was you were talking about Rasmussen's background. I don't know his family, where they lied politically in the past, but Jordan himself was a Democrat. He was a bona fide Democrat, and supposedly he had a conversion. He had went to Cuba as maybe when he was in college. He went to Cuba and he saw what things were like there, and supposedly he had enlightenment. But I think, this is my own personal opinion, I think his enlightenment was realizing that if he wanted to be in politics in this area, that he had to run as a Republican. His views hasn't changed.
Whoa! Wait a minute. So Jordan Rasmussen is a confessed Democrat.
Was.
Right. But I mean, he's a confessed, a repentant
Yeah.
Democrat. Let's use religious language.
Yeah.
He's a repentant Democrat.
Right.
Who was born and raised that way, and in college traveled to where?
Cuba.
And he came back a changed man?
I don't know if that's when it happened. I can't verify if it happened during that time, but at some point he had the revelation. Maybe that help open his eyes to what socialism was like, supposedly. But I can't.
So has he taken hard stands against socialistic tendencies here in the state of Minnesota? Because I keep hearing from people in that area that he hasn't really taken any hard stands.
No. His latest bill that he's trying to promote was paid family leave. And basically, he said that it wasn't going to come from taxpayer funds. What it was.
Whoa. How do you enforce something like that without investing taxpayer dollars?
This is how they squirm around it. Is they say that the employer is going to pay for this, but they're going to get tax credits back for providing that. So it's basically going to come out of the general fund anyway when they reduce the tax, that the employers would have to pay. So it's just a way of running around it. And there was an interview on one of the Twin Cities news channels where he was promoting this thing, and Lieutenant Governor and the governor came on afterwards, and they were licking their chops. Finally, we got a Republican on board, and they were just happy as all get out that a Republican was talking about paid family leave. So, I mean, the things that he promotes are not conservative at all.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at his. This is him claiming stuff. If somebody out there is watching and can find me his actual voting record, I'd like to look at that, even if it exonerates him. He's taken some pretty safe positions, and he's asserting them. He said what happened to our communities during the COOF pandemic at the reckless direction of Governor Walz must never happen again. As a legislator, I strongly opposed Walz's emergency powers and his damaging lockdown orders. During my first term in office, I voted every single time to end Governor Walz's emergency powers. So here's what I want to point out about that. So he has said, he's got these votes. Here's it's a safe vote against the powers that be, because you knew you weren't going to. Right. There was no way it was going to pass.
Right, in the House. You knew there was no way it was going to pass. So it's a martyr vote, is what it is. Right.
It's a way to say, look at me, I'm doing the conservative thing. So the question that I would have for business owners up there is, did Jordan Rasmussen reach out to any business owner and say, don't follow the governor's orders?
No. He was following them. He was sitting in the House with a mask on. Now, I know I chatted with Eric Mortensen a little bit. He never put a mask on once. Now, I was told that I had to get the vaccine at my place of employment. Every time the president spoke or the court spoke, it was going back and forth. When the mandate was on, I was mandated. But I was never going to do that. I'm going to stand up for principle. And that's what Nathan Miller's like. He was actually employed as a boiler operator, and he oversaw 20-some men. I can't remember who it was. And
he went to bat for them.
Huh?
He went to bat for them.
He stuck up for those guys. Said, I'm not going to force them to wear these stinking masks. They have a hard job, and he went to bat for them, and he paid the price. Where was Jordan? Did he go to bat for us? No, he sat there with his little diaper on his face, and then.
So Jordan on the House floor followed the House rules and wore the mask.
Oh yeah. What can we do? We can't do anything.
Exactly. So this is what I want people to understand. So, and one of the things that he puts up here is he eliminating vaccine mandates.
Mm-hmm.
Medical freedom is an important issue for me. The government must never require vaccines to participate in day-to-day life activities such as attending school or showing up for work. Your participation in society must never be dependent on a jab, mandate, or passport. I voted more than 5 times to protect medical freedom and crack down on jab, passports, and mandates. I supported the bill HF 3158 prohibiting any state agency, political subdivision, or business in the state from requiring individuals to be vaccinated or show proof of vaccination for any communicable disease. And then he goes on and on and on and on. So there again, I want to point this out. That's a safe martyr vote in the House when you know you're not going to get it past the leftist in the DFL.
Yep.
There was no chance that was getting to the Senate. None. And he knew that.
Yeah.
He knew that. But he could throw that vote out there and say, look what I did. The
Right.
question I have is did he ever publicly come out during the pandemic, during the governor's executive orders, and call the governor out publicly in front of his constituents and say, I'm telling my constituents in my district not to follow the governor's orders?
I couldn't answer that because that would mean I had to have seen every one of his press conferences, and I have not. But I've never seen one where he's done. So that's all I can say on that. I don't know if Marcia can speak more on that.
Marcia, are you aware of him ever speaking out publicly in the district, telling his constituents they do not need to follow the governor's orders?
No.
No.
Okay. Couple of things real quick. Well, because I want to kind of transition a little bit here. One, if you haven't watched, if you haven't shared this, please do share this. I actually want everybody in Ottertail County in the Republican Party leadership. I want Jordan Rasmussen to see this. I want him to contact me. I will right now tell you, I will let anybody from the Ottertail County Republican Party leadership come on this show and defend themselves. And here's what I'm going to tell you is going to happen. Butt kiss.
Yeah.
Jordan Rasmussen will not have the guts to talk to me, and I will not be. If you've ever seen me, I try not to be a jerk, but I don't go easy on people.
Right.
Jordan Rasmussen will not talk to me. I guarantee it. He will not talk to me. This is an open invite for anybody who sees this. Jordan Rasmussen, come on my show before the primary. I will make time, Jordan, to get you on here, and you can defend your position. I had your opponent on. Nate Miller had the temerity and the intestinal fortitude to come on a show with a guy he didn't know and speak his mind and talk about why he was running. So go ahead and do that. And he also had the ethics and the integrity to allow an opponent, or not an opponent, but somebody running as an independent, as a libertarian, to come to one of his events and have people sign his documents, which they tried to tear him apart for, by the way. So I want anybody from Ottertail County leadership to reach out to me. I will have you on. Jordan Rasmussen, I will have you on. And then everybody else, make sure you're sharing this, liking, commenting, and sharing. Drive this up in the algorithms. If you have a question that you'd like to ask, you can send it in a super chat. I will see it. If you're putting it up, I'm not going to see it in the chat.
TC, they will never do that. Nor will they,
because they're cowards.
Right. Well, there's a reason they won't do the audit either, and this is the reason. When you're guilty of something, you don't want an audit. The last thing you want is sunlight. Sunlight's the best disinfectant, and they do not want to be known, because if they didn't audit, they would be incriminating themselves, so that they can't do it. So their best hope is to just stay silent and hope this goes away. But like I said before, if any of you guys are listening from the swamp in Ottertail County, this is never going away. This will not go away. Another thing they try and paint us is as if we have sour grapes because our supposed candidate did not win the endorsement. Well, this happened at the county convention before a single delegate or any candidate was endorsed. We want honesty and we want integrity, and that's the only way we're going to ever have unity. They say we're divisive. Do the audit, get this out of the way, and then we can have unity. But they will not do an audit. They can't do an audit.
Carol just sent me a message. She must be in the other room watching. I don't. Yeah. She's running the show behind the scenes. Carol is the showrunner.
I'm just a puppet.
You're just the yeah. We would have rather looked at Carol. Just to be honest. I just want to. Marcia and Carol would have been much better.
Radio too.
Yeah. Thanks for throwing that out there.
Well, I did earlier too.
Yeah. Well,
in our private conversation.
Yeah. About me mostly.
No, I can relate. Yeah.
Carol pointed out that now since the county convention, the endorsing convention, the BPOU meetings for your county have all been canceled.
Right. Yes.
Now, I just put that out there. What on God's green earth could possibly be the motivation for canceling all those meetings? We're talking April, May, June, July have all been canceled. And I'm pretty sure that August isn't going to happen either, because here we are, less than 2 weeks away from August. Yep. So what could possibly be the reason for canceling that? I'm going to throw this out here, Marcia and Merle, if you think I'm wrong, correct me. Could it be if we keep allowing these people to show up, sooner or later they're going to get the votes? Somebody is going to wake up and go, I'm with them. We need to really, like, I want to support the leadership, so let's do this audit. And they don't want that. They do not want you there. This is no different than all the school boards across the state coming up with reasons to lock people out, keeping parents in mask after the mask mandates are shut down. This is exact same thing. These are the exact same tactics of the left. And when you use the same tactics as the left, you're going to leave me with one conclusion.
They are the left.
Not
They
liberals,
are the
by
left.
the way, ladies and gentlemen. They're not liberals. This is leftist tactics.
Just because they're not as far left as the communists yet, they're very close.
And that's almost worse.
Yes.
This is especially egregious in Ottertail County because Ottertail County is a very large county with a large block of people who vote Republican. So all the candidates clamor to come up to the BPOU meetings in Ottertail County. They ask us to have numerous times that they can come up and speak to everyone up here. And the problem with that is now these candidates have no way of getting to speak to all the members at one spot every month. They can have meet and greets, but it's on various different times, various different days.
It's
not
calculated. It's calculated to control who they have contact with.
Right.
I mean, and I saw that the Morrison County GOP had a special meeting, Brews and Politics or whatever, with Jordan and Jim Schultz. And I'm like, this is, I don't care if he's endorsed or not. The county party should be very careful about coming off as so pro-endorsed candidate, because it could bite them in the rear end if Nathan wins this primary, and they're counting on nobody voting for him because nobody knows who he is. That's what they're counting on. But if Nathan wins this,
He will.
He
will. He's going to win it.
I'm not saying he won't. Having met Nathan and had a conversation with him, and having had an insider trying to disrupt, and they got us off track a little bit with Nathan's interview, but some of the stuff he was saying was asinine. Not Nathan, the insider that was coming in to be a distraction. I believe Nathan can do it. But the money that they're going to have to spend to try and just beat Nathan in the primary, if he wins, they're going to have to get behind him. They have to get behind him. And they've already spent time and effort and money to beat him, which is going to make it even harder for them going forward. And that's why there's so much about what's going on in the state of Minnesota with the GOP that's got to change. It's got to change. We're almost this whole endorsement process, the way it happens, they handpick their candidates for endorsement well before any of the endorsing conventions, and they're, come hell or high water, they're going to make damn sure that guys like Jordan Rasmussen and who's running against Nathan Wiesenberg up there.
Oh, there.
It's
not our area.
Well, Wiesenberg refers to him as the carpetbagger, and it's taken hold up there, by the way, in Morrison County. People are like, oh yeah, that's that carpetbagger. I'm not voting for him. So, which is, by the way, happening a lot across the state of Minnesota with the GOP, is a lot of people carpetbagging into these new districts,
right?
In these new Senate districts to get these positions. Merle, regardless of the outcome, are you going away?
No, I won't go away. I don't like corruption, and this is ripe with corruption. What happened? I'm not.
So what about the accusation, Merle, that, okay, we've already talked about you're bitter because your guy didn't get in, and there again, you've already pointed out, like, no, I was upset before my guy didn't get in.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask you, are you going to just feel like you have to hold your nose and vote for Jordan at that point? Or are there options for you, Merle? Marcia, we'll get to you since you were a party insider. Merle, are you going to have to hold your nose and vote for him so you guys don't lose that seat? I mean, is it that important to us, right? And when I say us, I'm speaking broadly, not the three of us, but in a broad sense. Is it that important that guess I'm going to have to?
What I've typically done in the past is that I vote for the most conservative candidate available to me, and sometimes I've had to plug my nose. I'm getting less accustomed to do that. When we were talking about running third party, I agree with Ronald Reagan that as opposed to a third party, let's wrestle this thing back from the rhinos, from the establishment, from the swamp. Let's get conservatives taking hold of this party, because I think a third party would split things up three ways. We need to, I mean, there's two different takes on it. I know other people have a different view on that, but my view is we need, because I probably more closely align with the Constitution Party, but I want the Republican Party to become the Constitution Party of fiscal conservative, of social conservative, the three legs that hold up conservative that Ronald Reagan talked about. That's what I want for this party. So I'm not going away.
No. What do you do when you're faced with a person who, when you, and I'm not saying that's the outcome, but let's say you're faced with that person who's really not. I mean, you're like, okay, the most conservative person might actually be a leftist. What are you going to do?
That's a tough choice. That's what we're up against a lot of times. We had
you knew what you were getting into,
right? We had to vote. I had to vote in the past for Romney. I had to vote for John McCain. It becomes a tough deal. That's why I think primaries are more important than general elections, because the general elections, we got to choose between two liberals a lot of times, two leftists, I should say.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I was about to say leftist. Yeah, I was like, I every single person I talk to, oh, those damn liberals. No, they're leftists.
Yeah,
and I love liberals.
Right.
Classical liberals, I love them. They're great, good allies.
Right.
Marcia, you were a party insider. There was a time when your hands were tied as far as what you could say publicly and what you couldn't say, endorsing, and there again, we've already talked about that to some degree. But you're not a party insider anymore, and you are pushing back against the old guard, even in Ottertail County. How are you guys going to fix this? Because it's not just a Twin Cities thing. It's not just a Rhinos and Rochester thing. It's not just a DFLer in Rhino clothing in Duluth and Mankato. This is a legit problem across the entire state, and quite frankly, it's a legit problem across the entire GOP in the United States. What are you going to do to fix this in Ottertail County as a former insider?
Well, first off, I will never vote for a Democrat because I don't believe in abortion. Mm-hmm. And I will never vote for Jordan because I believe he is corrupt. So in some races, I will not be voting at all. And I know others who are of the same ilk. Merle and Carol and their friend Eric have a bunch of conservative people called the Caravan of Patriots, and they put on, they do parades, they do meet and greets, they do patriotism and things like that. And I'm the founder of a group called OTC Conservative Coalition. And about almost 2 months ago now, we got together with 6 other groups, either conservative candidates or conservative groups of people in Ottertail County. And we said, from this time forward, we are going to work together to present conservatives as candidates. And I believe that by going together with thousands of different people that believe the same way we do, that these things aren't going to be swept under the rug. we put things in the paper all the time. In the last 2 weeks, I've been in 4 different papers with my I don't know, exposés or whatever you might call it, in letters to the editors or the press. We're Merle's group and my group are doing some of the only debates before the primary.
How has that been received? Having debates before a primary, how has that been received, and what's the attendance been like as far as with candidates?
We have seen a lot of people come to the debates, to the meet and greets and such. If you could see the videos of even just the responses at parades and such, people are running to meet our candidates. People are calling their names over and over again. It's really very hopeful to see the people come together and go for the
I'm going to spring something on you here. I'm going to read a statement. I'm not going to tell you who it's from, and I want you to tell me your perception of whether or not this is a pro-life statement or a conservative position. Can we do that?
Go.
Sure.
All right, good. Because I was going to do it anyway. I am honored to have been endorsed by Minnesota Citizens Concerned for Life, MCCL, and have a 100% pro-life voting record. As a legislator, I will always defend the rights of the unborn. I co-authored the bill banning taxpayer-funded abortions and voted to advance a bill requiring abortion clinics to be licensed for the safety of mothers and babies. I will always defend and protect the sanctity of life. Pro-life statement, yes or no, Merle?
It's a way of appearing that way, and if
I asked yes or no, don't go into it yet.
No, okay.
Sorry, Marcia, pro-life statement, yes or no?
Not necessarily.
No.
Okay, now Merle, go ahead and explain your view, and then I want to hear Marcia's explanation.
That's JR again.
It absolutely is.
And that it's just a way of, you got to make it look good.
Mm-hmm.
Is he going to really fight for it? Is he going to fall on the sword? If I was representing the state, because I'm a Christian, I would fall on the sword. I would say, I'm not voting for a single bill until we protect life. I'm not going to give a dime. I'll shut down the government. Life is more important than any other issue that we have, going for us. So I don't think he's the type that's willing to fall on the sword, like he did with the mask and the mandate, wearing the mask, the diaper. I call it the diaper on the face, just to appease Walsh instead of standing up and saying, no, I'm not going to do it, like Eric Mortensen did.
Marcia, you had said not exactly or not precisely. I think you might have caught something. I know Merle caught it too. Merle, I don't want to downplay.
He's sharper than I am, so.
Huh?
Right.
He's sharper than I am, so she probably caught it.
Well, women listen better.
Yeah.
Towards the end, it's what you said that didn't sit right with me.
And what you want me to reread the last statement?
Yes, please.
I co-authored, and this is the thing that this is not pro-life, people. This is not anti-abortion. This is so. I want Jordan to come on and talk about this. I co-authored the bill banning taxpayer-funded abortions,
Right.
and voted to advance a bill requiring abortion clinics to be licensed for the safety of mothers and babies. Licensed for the safety of mothers and babies.
Place to go. I want them not to have an option.
Right.
Well, how do you make an abortion clinic safe for a baby?
Yeah.
But,
It's not possible.
and who's going to pay for it?
Right.
Jordan, that is the most asinine, stupid thing. You can sit here and say, "Well, I didn't mean to say it that way." Literally, I want licensing. Name an abortion clinic in the state of Minnesota that's not a licensed medical care center now. Name one. Name one. Because I guarantee you, if there is one, even the state of Minnesota would shut it down if it's not licensed.
Mhm.
Right. So it's just words full of
It's
fluff.
just bleh, is all it is. It's just bleh. And here's why it works. Because and Merle, you've mentioned this. Oh, I'm conservative. I have to vote for the pro-life candidate. I'm conservative. I have to vote. I have to vote for the person who's cutting funding. And so you could vomit it out there. And the vast majority of people who are Christian conservatives do not engage the intellect, do not engage with reasoning, and break down these statements and not just take them at face value, but listen to what's being said. How do you make a flipping abortion clinic safe for babies?
Yeah. You don't.
Period. How do you make it safe? You murder the baby safely. It's a safe murder. Jordan, thank you for ensuring that babies are safe while they're being murdered in clinics in Minnesota.
Right. Yeah.
I'm sorry. When I read that, especially when you brought up the pro-life thing, Marcia, I'm like, I'm going to see what he has to say. That is not a pro-life statement. That's not a pro-life statement. It's an incrementalist statement, and incrementalism has done nothing for babies in this country. But anyway,
right. You know, when they talk about, you know, we're supposed to all fall in line and support the endorsed candidate, what they're essentially saying, and most Republicans claim to be Christians. Well, what is the distinguishing feature of a Christian? It isn't whether you go to church. It isn't whether you go to Sunday school, whether you read your Bible. Romans 8 says this: for as many as are led by the Spirit of God, they are the sons of God. So when I go into a polling booth, I have to be led by the Spirit of God on who to pick. When they say you must vote for this candidate, they're saying ignore what God tells you to do, ignore the Spirit of God inside of you directing you, and just do what we tell you to do. So that whole swamp mentality, go for the endorsed candidate, is not for a Christian. I'm sorry.
Well, so in Merle and Marcia, there again, I know you've said you've listened to me, which there again is probably the better way to do it, is to listen. You know, I genuflect all over the place when I talk. Merle, you know that I have people in my viewing audience who are not Christian.
Right.
I have stood shoulder to shoulder with atheists.
Yeah.
I have stood shoulder to shoulder with Muslims. I have a friend. His name is Ahmad. He is people don't believe this, he's a minority Muslim homosexual.
Mm-hmm.
People are like, how's that possible? What can we do in a place like Ottertail County, which probably, I mean, Ottertail County is pretty rural. I mean, it maybe almost as rural as my county. I live in one of the poorest counties in the state. But what do we do as a conservative party to reach out to a guy like Ahmad, or my friend Josh, who hosts another podcast, Disaffected? By the way, if you have never listened to Disaffected, it is a show that you have got to listen to, because my friend Josh is an openly gay man who is an atheist, who rips apart philosophically, with reason and logic, rips apart the LGBTQ agenda. As a former leftist, you have to listen to a show. You may not always like how he says things. He's a little rough around the edges at times, but he has so much to say about that movement, and he's dead on accurate. I've just made friends with another guy who comes from somewhat the same perspective. Not Christians, but they're looking for a place and they're looking at the Republican Party right now, going in Minnesota, going, why should I vote for a Republican? They don't sound any different than the party I walked away from. And is the Republican Party only for straight white Christians? Because I'm going to sit here and say not anymore. Now, I don't want people to hear me. I'm not denouncing Christianity. That's not my point. But we have got to be able. We keep talking about reaching across the aisle, right? We reach across the DFL, and we've got to work with the DFL. No, we need to work with conservatives who don't look like us, who don't have the exact same worldview as us when it comes to things like God, whether or not they're gay, whether or not they're Muslim. We have got to find those talking points where we agree, and how do we encourage them to see that the party is worth being part of, and how do we rescue it from the people that they're walking away from? And Ottertail County is a great place for that to start. Go ahead,
Personally,
Martha.
I would like not to discuss sexual orientation or anything like that. I don't talk about it to anyone in the public that has to say with my own beliefs. I just don't think this is something we should be talking about in public and in front of our children. And so that kind of takes that out. As far as race is considered, I feel that we're all the same. I have black grandchildren and I have white grandchildren, and they have cousins who are Native Americans. I don't think race should be a problem. We're all equal. But I really seriously don't want to see these kind of things discussed in public and in front of children especially. I understand what you're getting at, but I just don't want it to be a topic. I want it to be a non-topic. I'm sorry.
No, I don't want you to apologize for your view, because I think that's where the average American is. I was listening to Blackbird podcast today, and he had a gentleman on, and they were talking back and forth, and I'm working on getting the host of Blackbird on. We're in communication to have him come on, and he's a gay libertarian here in Minnesota. And Mises Caucus. So we're not talking about some far off left-wing libertarian. We're talking Mises Caucus. We're like constitutional originalists. These are conservative folks. And it's one of the things that he was talking about is why is this even, why are we even having this conversation in schools right now? And his guest said, and if it was up to me, we wouldn't even have public schools. So Merle's like, amen. That
But 10th plank of the Communist Manifesto: free education, public education for everyone.
So I think that's the thing, though, Marcia, is what you're saying. In a place like Ottertail County is a great place to be having this conversation. I don't care what your not your ideology. I do care about your ideology. I don't care what your attraction is. I don't care what your ethnicity is. We want you in this party if you're pro small government, originalist constitutionalist, or constitutional originalist, pro values that stem from that. And one of the things that came up in the conversation today, and I want to throw this at you guys, is that the left and the right are both seen by a lot of people as being pro censorship. The left wants to censor anything that you say that could be offensive to anyone, and the right wants to censor anything that could be offensive to them. And that, I think, is the talking point that we have to get to, is like, I'm a First Amendment absolutist. I may not agree with you, but I will defend to the death your right to say it, short of threatening violence on somebody and actually advocating for violence. Do you think that that's where a place like Ottertail County as a Republican Party can start making those inroads to even people who have voted traditionally Democrat? Like, do you really want to be on the authoritarian left? Asking those questions. Not that you don't have your own authoritarians in Ottertail County right now.
As a conservative and as a Christian, again, God does not force us to be good. He asks us to be good, to follow his command and stuff like that. And government is put in place to restrict people from harming one another. If people do things that I disagree with, and many people do, it doesn't matter whether a person is in fornication or whether they're adultery, homosexual, they're free to do that in our country. And I would witness to them telling them there's a better way. But as far as forcing them, no. I mean, we don't have. And what's happened to the radical left right now is they're not looking for freedom anymore. In the 80s, they started to look for freedom to do what they wanted. But today, they want everybody to agree with them and sanction other behavior. That's just like the Republican Party forcing you to endorse their candidate. You can't go against your conscience. You have to do what your conscience says, but that doesn't mean you condemn The other people, you might speak the truth to them in order to convict them, but you don't condemn people and you don't force them into your. The only thing that we restrict basically is constitutional, and that is abortion, because we believe somebody is harmed in an abortion, and that is an innocent baby.
I'm going to break one of my rules, and I'm going to put up some comments from people that aren't super chatting because nobody wants to super chat us tonight. I think you guys are worth all the money in the world. But that's easy for me to say because the super chats go to me. So, Carol, she said a while ago, the Republican Party platform is good. The people who are running it are corrupt. I would, and Carol, I think that's a great point. The problem is that as good as the platform is, it's not good if they're not following it. And that's what we have to, we need I don't care if the platform is 5 planks long. If we could just get them to support those 5 planks, that would be amazing. Greg Wayne brought up, I'm questioning MCCL. They also endorsed Steve Wenzel for Senate. He's a 28-year Democrat running as a Republican. Greg, I think that's a great point. But at the same time, I'm starting to see a lot of people walking away as candidates and as office holders, walking away from the Democrats and saying, no, I don't align with them anymore. I have to go someplace where I can caucus. So let's give Steve Wenzel a shot and see if maybe he's actually picked up some conservative creds. Gwen Vagel said, good question. I'm assuming she's asking how we're going to reach across these lines to people who maybe don't see eye to eye with us. So thanks for that. Papana, I don't know who Papana is. Papana says, why would you vote Republican over Demo, really? The smallest of government interference. Thank you very much. I think that could be the case, but right now what we're seeing is that's not always the case, because the Republicans will interfere in a lot of places where we don't want them interfering as well. Don't forget, Operation Warp Speed was the brainchild of President Trump. He gave us the jabs across the country through the power of the military.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to debate it, but let's not just assume that just because somebody's got an R behind their name that they're small government. That's not always the case.
True.
Gwen asked, do people support the Republican Party platform or not? And that, Gwen, I think is the biggest thing. Will you stand? I don't care who you're going to support, endorsements or not. Does the endorsed candidate stand on the platform, and will they agree to step down the minute they do not stand on the platform? And when I say stand on the platform, I mean support it 100%. If they won't support it, they shouldn't get the endorsement. And if they do get the endorsement and then they violate any plank of the platform, gone.
We've been called purists for having that attitude, TC. We're purists.
I've been called worse than that lately. Trust me.
That's a compliment to me to be called a purist.
Well, me too, but I mean, I've been called all sorts. Somebody tried to call me a Proud Boy, and I'm like, have you met the Proud Boys? They're not all bad. It's like, they're racist. Have you met the Proud Boys in Minneapolis? There's like 50% of them are minorities. So, Pupana says the corruption has gone wild on both sides, and I think that's what Republicans in especially Ottertail County, Morrison County, and other places are starting to see. You guys, Marcia, you've been there for a long time. There again, I'm not talking about how old you are, but you've been involved for a while.
She started when she was 6.
Yeah, there you go. So she started at a very young age.
Yeah.
Merle, and you've seen it now, especially over the last couple of years as you and Carol have become more involved. Do you think it was easier for you to see it coming in, Merle, from the outside, or Marcia, did it sneak up on you? Marcia, did you have the frog in the pot of water experience, and Merle, did you have the frog dropped in the pot of water experience, or did it kind of surprise you both, or maybe you were not both surprised?
I don't think I was surprised as much as probably the depth of the corruption. I didn't have any idea how deep it was. I thought that there was a lot more true conservatives out there fighting for this country than there are. But you could really see the knives come out as Trump was heading out the door. The knives came out to stab him in the back as he was leaving office, and that really should open people's eyes.
Marcia, you got something to?
I had seen corruption at the CD7 level and at MNGOP level to the point where they would cuss at us and argue with us and ask us to quit and step down from the positions we held. And this is why we stepped back from the party. We were protesting unfairness and corruption, and we were the minority. And so we stepped
You were
down.
getting cursed at?
Oh, yeah. Yelled at. Yeah.
And I want to say that surprises me, but it really doesn't. And there again, especially when you look at the way Nate's wife, Nathan Wiesenberg's wife, was treated, like manhandled at one of their county get-togethers. So I guess it doesn't really shock me at all. Just if people haven't seen it, I'll put a link to Nate Miller's interview in this video description, as well as a link to Nate's wife being assaulted and abused. Merle, I know that it's 8:32, and you're an old man and have to go to bed because you get up at the butt crack of the morning.
Yeah.
Marsha's just a business owner. She just runs a hardware shop. Speaking of which, Marsha, do you want to tell us about? Do you want to promote your business a little bit? I won't even charge you for it.
I live in a community that isn't as conservative as I'd like. But I will tell you that people are waking up in this community. People come in and talk to me almost every day about what they're seeing happen in our county. And they're not happy.
Yeah. Do you think that people who would have kind of traditionally voted Dem are now starting to scratch their heads and say, I think I might have to change how I vote?
I do know that's true because some of them are coming in and talking to me and just being real upfront. I've been a Democrat all my life and starting to talk to me about the concerns that we're having in our county, not just with the Republican Party, but also with our liberal commissioners and people on school boards and such like that.
That's actually should be very encouraging to the people of the state. Merle, are you having those conversations as well?
As far as getting on board locally and getting involved?
No, with people who maybe are like noticing you and Carol out, speaking out, and there's no way in the world they don't know who you are in small communities. Are they aware, and are you being approached by people who maybe traditionally been Democrat, but maybe those blue dog Democrats who, vote Democrat, but they've always been kind of socially conservative and maybe fiscally a little less, are now starting to say, I don't recognize my party anymore?
Yeah, I think there's people with their eyes are opening up to that, to realize conservatism actually protects them, and where they thought the Democrat Party protected them, and they're seeing that they haven't been. So, yeah, I see that happening here. Can I add one more thing too before about the Ottertail County, what thing that was going on there? Okay, the caucus night was February 1st. Do you know when the candidates got their delegate list so they could start calling people, sending out mailings to them? Do you know what day that they finally got? Because my wife worked as a volunteer for one of the governors, and so they had to wait. Do you know when they got that date was? Either one of you guys?
I have no idea.
Well, it had to be more than 2 weeks late.
February 25th, 24 days late before they could start campaigning, calling people, sending out mailers and stuff. But our representative who was running for Senate immediately started calling people and immediately started sending out mailers. Now, how did he get that list? I wonder if it had anything to do with the fact that his wife was the secretary of the party. I don't know. Could it have been?
Well, he's part of the leadership committee too.
Right. Yes. Yep.
So
Yeah, he had access to
is
it.
that not there again? Whether it's okay or not, is that ethical?
Right. And why did it take so long? Were they shuffling the list around a little bit, and it took them 24 days before they were able to get that out?
Inquiring minds want to know.
Well, you would think. I guess Marcia's been involved with that type of thing more than I have. I'm new to this. It wouldn't seem like it would take 24 days from the day of the caucus, because then you can't add or subtract names once caucus is closed. So you would think it would be a relatively short period of time before each candidate would be able to get that list of delegates.
There's no excuse for it to take almost a month. None.
Well,
no
there
excuse.
is
No
one.
excuse.
If you want to alter the list, that's one excuse.
No, there's no excuse.
No,
So, nice
reason.
try, Merle. There's no
reason. I should say reason, not excuse.
Well, there's no reason.
There is.
I'm a hard ass. I'm just gonna say there's no reason for that. I really appreciate you guys coming on. I think that what we need to do going forward is we need to keep doing some updates, but I'd really like to have you guys stir up some more people who are experiencing this, because you have connections that I don't have. Mm-hmm. You know, I was thankful that Carol saw my plea, like, hey, let's talk about this. And she finally said, I think it's time. And that's what I appreciate, is I've been saying this, Merle, you know this. I've been saying, somebody freaking talk to me. Mm-hmm. Because what's been happening is everybody's kind of hinting at their discontent, but they're not really wanting to put themselves out there. And I get it. There's some people in positions of leadership, constitutionally obligated within the bounds of the party constitution to not say things publicly. Mm-hmm. But there are people who are on the inside that aren't in leadership who are doing what you guys are able to do tonight. And I think what we need to do is we need to get a lot more people speaking about this boldly, going on different forms of alternative media, alternative reportage, if you will, and speaking out. So if you two have further connections, whether it be people who are running for an in a primary or whatnot, to talk about this stuff, let's get more people together and do a roundtable of people from different counties who are experiencing these same problems, and let's make that happen. Because we've got Han from Moorhead, who would like to be part of that. And he's going through the same problem. Yeah. I mean, look at what they're doing to Mark Wachowski. Endorsed, and they're trying to not fund him. He's endorsed.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Mark's willing to take part because he already knows that they're going to fight against him no matter what. So does Carol want to come on and say something? Because I keep seeing you look at, she's I know she's feeding you information from the side.
Yeah. She's in another room. I can't see her.
Oh.
But I would like to do a commercial.
You
want Merle, go ahead. I want
to do a commercial. Yeah. Next Tuesday, August 2nd, at Cactus Garden in Perm, we are having Eric Van Mechelen. He's Secretary of State candidate. I think you've had him on. Yep. He's going to be in Perm, and he's going to speak a little bit about his book that he wrote dealing with the election fraud in 2020.
Some things.
And also
trying to get the video taken down.
Yeah. And also the Nathan Miller will be speaking there as well. So those people who've not heard him, they need to hear him. I can't sell him like he can sell himself.
No, he's
the real deal. He's so authentic. His Christianity is not something hidden. That's out in the forefront. He's a man of character. He's a conservative. He's a constitutionalist. But people need to come out and meet him. If you vote, you should at least be able to hear both candidates before casting a vote. So come out to Perm next Tuesday, August 2nd at 6:00 p.m. Cactus Gardens.
Cactus Gardens in Perm, Minnesota.
Yeah.
You have no cactuses in Perm, Minnesota. What do you?
We have one
at the Cactus Gardens.
Cactus, yeah.
That's just like we have the Oasis over here in Dexter, Minnesota. It's literally not an oasis. It's just a name.
We have one of those. It's only about a quarter of a mile from the cactus. We have an oasis. So
That's I guess an oasis is what you make it. Anything you want to plug, Marcia?
Yes, I would like to plug people to listen to your podcasts,
Oh, thank you.
listen to the truth, and you have given us a way to share across the state.
Yeah.
That we
So I
had not
appreciate that.
before.
Yeah.
I have to tell you that there's only been one other live stream that's actually probably had as many people popping in and popping out as this one, and I think so far our peak has been, our peak concurrent views has been up to 35, and we've have over 70 people that have tuned in so far, which is really good for a live stream for a small channel, a small platform like mine. So I really appreciate you guys doing this. And Merle, I know you need to run off to get to bed. And Marcia, you probably need to like lock up your business now that you've outed yourself as a conservative in a not as conservative town. Next thing you know, Antifa and Black Bloc are going to be protesting. All three of them are going to be there, holding cardboard signs. So I hope that this has been useful to you guys, and that I did a better job of not talking as much as I did with Eric. Eric and I talked a lot the night he was on. So,
Yeah.
so, but you guys go out there and stir up some people. Let's see if we can get a round table of people that you have connections with, and let's do it. I've told Carol in Messenger, I am ready to philosophically burn the GOP to the ground if need be.
Yes.
Yeah.
Philosophically.
Thank you.
Not literally.
Not literally.
Yeah.
No violence.
Philosophically burn them to the ground, because I'm tired of being abandoned.
Yeah.
I'm very, very tired of being abandoned.
Right.
And being taken for granted. That's ultimately what this is they're taking conservative, constitutional originalists like myself, paleo conservatives like myself. They're taking us for granted, going, oh, they'll just hold their nose and vote for whoever we tell them to because they don't have a choice. I'm a little bit more black-pilled than a lot of you. I'm kind of to the point where I'm ready to see the GOP collapse on itself and never win another election if we can start advancing people who better represent us. So you guys, let me know what I can do to help.
I'm done voting for the lesser of two evils.
Yes. Yeah. Me too.
We'll get in touch with some people and get together with you.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Absolutely. You guys go get out of here. I'll do my close. I got somebody asked me where to get one of these beanies.
Thanks,
I appreciate
BC.
it.
God
You guys
bless
have a
you.
great night. No, God bless. Thanks for the time.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. Those of you that have been here from the beginning and watched throughout, it's been amazing. I appreciate it. You guys know I like to talk, so that's why I drink while I'm talking. Well, not drink, I like sip. And there have been a few topics I've had to drink my way through. I'll tell you that. Pupana. You're ready for a white pill. You know what? I'm with you on this. So give me just a second. I'll get you a white pill. If you're interested in any of my merchandise, if you'd like one of these, this is hand knitted for me by some friends. So I wear this at every show. Ouch. I'm a professional podcaster, ladies and gentlemen. If you're interested in any of my merchandise, or if you're interested in a beanie like this, you can send me an email, tcpearson@protonmail.com, tcpearson@protonmail.com. And Merle and Carol's son just got on. I'm glad I didn't have him up on camera. If you want any of this stuff, let me know. Send me a message, or find me on Facebook, TC Pearson, on Facebook, and send me a message. Let me know what you're interested in, and I can get you prices for shipping and for product. Here's your white pill, ladies and gentlemen. We win. At the end of the day, if we stand on the Constitution, we win, and we can win if we stand on the Constitution. But you have got to be willing to do the hard thing, and that means asking hard questions, doing the hard thing, and voting for somebody, win or lose. Win or lose. You have got to be willing to stop voting for the candidate that can win. Because what the GOP has demonstrated for us over and over and over again is that when we vote, Carol, I see you. I'm going to make you come on screen here. I can do it real quick now. Like she ducks off. If we commit to voting principles, voting ethics, voting our beliefs, voting our strengths, we don't need to hold our noses and vote for the lesser of two evils anymore. This needs to be a wake-up call, not to the conservative base, not to the anti-authoritarian base. This needs to be a wake-up call to the Minnesota GOP. We're not putting up with your crap anymore. It's our party, and we're going to take it back. And if you don't want to play ball with us, then maybe we start voting for Mises Caucus Libertarians. I'll do it. And that's why I'm doing my Libertarian Lowdown series. And I said, okay, look. Hi, Carol.
Hey, Casey.
I was trying to say goodbye, but I had to bring. This is the brains. Carol is the brains behind the movement up there in Ottertail County,
and the beauty, both the beauty and the brains.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue with you on that one, Carol. Thank you for so much for putting this together.
Yeah,
and thank you so much for having Merle and Marsha on too. So
we're going to have them back on. So you, Carol, you especially need to stir up some people for the roundtable from whatever counties you have contact with.
Great.
So you guys go get out of here. Go say goodnight to the kids.
Bye.
And thanks for doing this.
Yep.
So the white pill is we can win. We can win. We can do this. And my challenge is out there. I will eat crow if Jordan Rasmussen comes on my show. I'll do it. Jordan, you come on here and prove me wrong. Prove to me that you are a man of your courage and your convictions, and you come on my show and defend yourself. Defend your positions. I'll ask you hard questions. I got news for you. I'm not above asking you tough questions, but we'll do it. We need to start voting our principles, our ethics, and our integrity. Whether you're a Christian, a non-Christian, an atheist, I don't care if you're a conservative member of a conservative homosexual or whatever, start voting your principles. That's how we take back the conservative movement. Or we leave the Republican Party and we start voting Mises Caucus. And by the way, there is a Mises Caucus surging in the GOP. You want a white pill? Mises Republicans. Look it up. They're out there. And they have a website. And they're not trying to take over the party. They're trying to change the party to get it back to its roots. Could you imagine Mises Republicans and Mises Libertarians getting together, winning elections, and changing the fabric of this nation back to what it once was? That, ladies and gentlemen, is what I want. Real quick, I want to say again, thank you so much to Ardent Sales for becoming for being just great supporters of this show. Wonderful supporters of this show. Head over to my Subscribestar Minnesota Black Robe Regiment if you like my content. There's some exclusive stuff with Spike Cohen on there. I want to say thank you to people like Marsha, to my friend Larry, to Tara and Sarah and Tim, who are all supporters through Subscribestar. Ladies and gentlemen, I need Subscribestar to help me pay the bills, to help pay for regular shows, because I have to keep the internet turned on to do this. And it literally is helping pay those bills. And so I really appreciate any support. Once again, if you're interested in merchandise, if you want to buy coffee, if you're a coffee drinker, let me know. Sarah, I know you like dark roast, but this stuff is phenomenal. Okay? If you like dark roast, you like this. Don't wait for the espresso style to come out. This dark roast is amazing, or this medium full body roast is amazing. So if you want coffee, I can ship that to you as well. As always, my friends, don't just sit back and be content to hold your nose and vote. All right? Stand on your principles. Fight for your liberty. Fight for your freedoms. Fight for those constitutionally enshrined, not granted, constitutionally enshrined, God-given negative and natural rights. Do not let the tyrants win. And until next time, like, comment, share, make this go viral. Find me people for a roundtable. And until next time, sic semper tyrannis.
We are go for liftoff in T-minus 30.
Stand by for further instructions, Minnesota Black Robe Regiment.
Secondary guidance systems engaged.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, it will be on my mark.
All systems are a go. All systems are a go.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, you are over the target. You are authorized to fire at